Still trying to find a general setup here for these videos, and it's taking a little bit longer than I expected. So welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about a recent trip that I took to Venice, Italy. Yes, the famous Venice. It wasn't a photography trip or anything like that. It was just like a personal weekend break that I took with my girlfriend. I found some time to take some photos, of course, as well. I guess in this video, I'm just gonna talk through some of my thoughts of being there in a place as famous, as historic, and nowadays infamous as Venice. There was plenty to think about, and yeah, lots of thoughts that I had while I was there. So I'm just gonna run through some of the photos and talk through some of those things that popped into my head. So I had initially set my expectations pretty low for a place like Venice. Not because I thought it was like a bad or horrible place or anything like that. It's just I'd heard so much about what it had become with the crowds and the tourism and the prices and all of that kind of stuff. So I was going there really expecting the worst, pretty much. I mean, maybe that's because I set my standards so low, but I have to say it was better than I expected there. And honestly, one thing I really didn't expect was just the impact of like seeing the canals and the city on the water for the first time. Like when we got off the train and landed there, and you see that this like really is just a city that's literally built on the water. It's like right there in front of you, by your feet. That was much cooler than I expected. I didn't really think that it would take me back as much as it did, you know, like the kind of that initial beauty, like that was really, really hard hitting, and I did not expect that. But despite all of the crowds and everything else, Venice is still undeniably an incredibly beautiful city. Like on this weekend, I didn't even try to take photographs really. I just had my camera with me and snapped some random ones every now and then. And every single photo you take is just really interesting and really beautiful, and that really speaks to the place. It is just a very beautiful, rare place. Obvious things you think about when you're in Venice is this relationship of the historic and old Venice to the modern and touristic Venice, and just in general the impact of over-tourism and both the benefits that it creates for a place like Venice, because there are benefits to tourism, but then also, of course, the downsides to it as well. And there are many, many downsides to tourism on a scale like you see in Venice. And when you're there, it's very hard not to see that. And I found it particularly interesting just when you contrast it to just how historic and beautiful and unique a place like Venice is. Where I thought you see the negative sides most are just how hard like local culture is to find. First of all, I like to say this is probably because I wasn't there for long enough. I think you want to find a real local culture in a place, you have to spend longer than 3 days there, of course. But with that said, compared to other places that I've been to for a short period of time, I thought it was particularly hard to find real local stuff in Venice. Like there was lots of restaurants and lots of cafes, and they were really nice, but none of them that I visited really felt local. Like they all felt like just kind of designed for tourism. Now maybe that was just because there was so many tourism there and they just like overtake them, you know, like they're full of tourists every day, so of course they feel like they're designed for tourism. But either way, it kind of felt to me like local culture is being overtaken by the tourism in Venice, which is strange for a place that's famous for having hundreds of years of its own unique culture. So one thing I was thinking of when I was there is just that relationship between the two, because clearly Venice and places like this, they benefit from tourism too, you know, it brings a lot of money into the city, but it's also just at the expense of the people that have lived there. And how these places live in the modern world It's like a question I was thinking of a lot when I was there. I don't know enough about the story of tourism in Venice to have a judgment on it one way or the other. And I'm sure there is lots of local tourism left. I know the city is making big efforts to try and scale back its tourism and bring back some of that unique culture. Just felt quite strange, the relationship between the two, like the new and old Venice. As I said, I didn't take many photos here during this weekend. It was a personal weekend, not one strictly for photography, as much as I wish every trip was. But I still found some time to snap a few. The ones I did take, they all came out pretty nice. Like, as I said, a place like Venice is just so beautiful. It's very hard to take a bad photo there. And I know there is the whole thing of the cliche photo, you know, all of these tourists taking the same photos in Venice. And you see a lot of that around. But still, it is what it is. And it is insanely beautiful. One thing in particular I thought was really nice as I was walking around was just around sunset time. Slivers of light just start to crack through the buildings. And you see them pop up on walls, reflecting here and there. And it's really, really beautiful. In the photos I did take, I tried to focus on just, what Venice was, kind of capturing life on the water, the story of Venice, but the historic and the modern, you know, like trying to take some photos of the impact of the tourism that I talked about. I always find it interesting to take photos of that when I am in these places too, because to me that is part of the experience, part of the story of a place now and how it's changed over time. I travel light with just a small camera and a 28mm lens. I would highly recommend that for anybody that's going there because it is, as I said, it's really busy and it's quite famous for its pickpockets and stuff too. So just having a small setup on me was nice. It was easier on my feet as well because you do a lot of walking in Venice. But yeah, overall, the canals, the color of the water, the architecture, the colors of the houses, everything. It's pretty much a photographer's dream there, even if it's been over-photographed. Overall, I would say that Venice exceeded my expectations in many ways. Despite the city's troubles with over-tourism and all of the other negative stuff that you read a lot these days, I found it to be still like a very beautiful place. There is some caveats for sure. There is some cliches, of course, and some bad stuff. But overall, I found Venice as a place to be very inspiring, both creatively and personally.